And I know that those who have done SASCE for all these years are finding it atypical that at this time we're almost done. And they feel that we've got like gaps that need to be filled with some kind of activity. Maybe when we conclude here, Bazala will give you an opportunity to sing just one more time, just so that you can feel the gap that you feel you're gonna have today. But it's cold outside, so it gives an opportunity to go to bed, not to the bar, to bed, and rest those voices. Or you want to go to the bar? And you'll pay for yourselves? Okay. Let me firstly thank the program directors for the splendid job that they have given us today, as always, and every time they take it a notch higher. Particularly those who are seeing for the first time on this national stage. We're really, really proud of what South Africa can offer in terms of the work that you do, Bazala, with your colleagues. And we also thank the South African Sign Language interpreters who have got to do what she's doing right next to me throughout the day, throughout all the hours. And it's not easy. We know that it's not easy. We also want to thank the National Coordinating Committee in its whole entirety, because we know that the success of this program really lies in the effort and the devotion and the commitment that they give into the program. They have sleepless nights. They fight really against and among one another, all for a common purpose to ensure that we give our children the kind of experience that they deserve, that we intend to give them through this program. You know, colleagues, that we are in the space now as the Department of Basic Education to ensure that we improve our offering in the performing arts beyond choral music. But choral music is the gateway activity that exists, that lives, that is sustainable, that will help us to make our way into the performing arts. We know that there is dance, there is contemporary music, there's instrumental music, all kinds of things, but the survival of SASCE is what will determine what happens in the future in terms of performing arts.
You caught my attention when you were doing a vote of thanks on behalf of Mr. Sfiso Ngobese, 2023 SASCE at Rema. You were good. Because I was crossing from the back, then you caught my attention, then I turned.
You're like, who's that?
Yeah, yeah, talking with that confidence.
Hey.
Yeah, well, trying to drawing attention without shouting anyone, but free.
Yeah, it looks like that vote of thanks was like spectacular.
Yeah, it was.
And you know, when I was asked to render that vote of thanks, I was not even aware that I'm going to render a vote of thanks. So one of the program managers, Jeanette Zungu, called me from the back, you know, where we're sitting with Minister.
Yes.
They brought me in, and I'm like, why am I being brought in? Then she said, you're going to deliver a vote of thanks. And I said, where are the notes? She says, no, we had not prepared the notes. So as I'm walking to the stage, they've already called my name. I'm walking to the stage and she is whispering to me, you must thank so-and-so, you must thank so-and-so. And I thought, okay, this is going to be a mess. It's going to be character assassination, you know? But I'm very happy. I don't know, really something came over. I think when you are invested in education matters, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. If you are as invested as I am and many other people who are just as invested, you can just talk to the audience and you can appeal to the audience, and you know, the sympathy and the the unison that we were able to mobilize with our audience. And I know nothing about choral music. Sifiso Ngobese is not around, he's overseas. And minister says that I must stand in for him, you know, that kind of a thing. So, but it taught me a lot about the space of choral music.
Yeah, this is Grand Piano Truth. My name is Sia. Today I'm hanging out with LIKHO BOTTOMAN. He's a director with social cohesion and equity in education. I don't know anything about that. But LIKHO zasixelela uba yintoni athetha ngayo xa sithetha nge-social cohesion and equity education. Bro, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
I am so honored.
Yeah. Then if sithetha nge-social cohesion and equity in education, sithetha ngantoni?
I think social cohesion is recognizing that as a country we come from a past of division and a past of apartheid, a past of inequality. And I think those inequalities still exist in our society. And so as a country, we then agreed that for us to facilitate healing of woundedness, we need to be very deliberate and intentional about how we build a cohesive society, because we're a rainbow nation. We're diverse, we're different in terms of race, culture, religion, sex, gender, sexual orientation, and all of those things. And how do you then keep society alive and moving as a unit with all of that difference? And I think that's where social cohesion stems from in South Africa in particular. Okay. So now we recognize that there are a couple of things that are determinants of opportunity and access. And these are race. People's race is very important and can determine whether or not they've got access to things, whether or not they've got opportunities to things. Yes. Their culture, their geographical location as well. I do think that also religion sometimes does play a role, but I think the biggest of them all are race and gender. I think race and gender are a big thing. So in social cohesion, in education then, we recognize that we don't want to produce young people who are certificated, but who are not educated, you know. So we need to educate them and prepare them for inclusive societies. That we know that, you know, Ninaseni Pumile school and there's nothing we can do. You know that thing that says you can't teach an old dog new skills. Yes, any Pumile school there's nothing you can do, ni contaminated, that's fine. But I think if we need to prepare for the future of South Africa that is cohesive, that is peaceful, we need to start with them at a very young age so that they recognize and appreciate and also respect constitutional values and they're able to live with people who are different. A lot of families are really struggling to drive that agenda with their children because they think that their children will always grow up in societies that emulate their homes. But that's not true, because your child is going to leave your home one day and go to university to meet other children who come from other races, other nationalities, who have got different races and different genders. And those children need to be able to coexist with other children. So social cohesion is really just about coexistence for peaceful engagements and building the nation that we want to see.
Okay. Then I know the director of media office, but I don't know the director of social cohesion. Office every day. Take us through.
You know, it's so funny because just this morning I was doing an interview with SAFM on. We were talking about the pens down, experience for young people. It's really a big issue for us, you know. We do, because we invest a lot in children's lives whilst they're in school. But once schools close, all of that investment goes away. So I do some interviews for the DBE on radio and television. Right. So part of my work has got a lot to do with media. But the crux of the work that I do is really just about ensuring that we drive a human rights agenda in education. Because there's a lot of human rights violation that we see in basic education and in school communities. And we really drive that, and we encourage young people to become conversant with the Constitution and what rights they have, but also what responsibilities they have to exercise those rights.
Yes.
We are also driving an agenda of oral history in social cohesion, because again, just historically, we've got histories that are documented which are not accurate, which do not state the real issues. There are people who tell you the real histories. For example, how Johannesburg was discovered. I'm told that, the history, the documented history says that Johannesburg was discovered by a white man. But there are histories that are undocumented that say that actually Johannesburg was discovered by a black man who was working for a white man. Those things. These are the things. I'm not sure about the veracity of that issue. But I mean, these are the kinds of issues.
Yes.
And also, there are in communities heroes and heroines who really fought for South African communities, but who never got to a point where they could be acknowledged for the contribution that they had made into the struggle of this country. So these are the kinds of histories then that we try to deal with. They're not documented, but children can engage with these histories, and they can go and research about these things, and they come to present about those things. But in this work, we also have an opportunity to drive an anti-discrimination and anti-xenophobic agenda, because, we need to help South Africans understand that when we were down and out, we really relied on outside nationalities to help us. And so now that they need our help, we need to ensure that we are able to live with them peacefully. There are other issues that are connected to that. People will argue that, crime, this and that, and how do they come in?
We didn't want your countries and open shops and do what.
Exactly. So these are the things that we then have to to deal with as the department. But also within this space, we also have an agenda that we have to drive of gender empowerment. We have to empower young girls, and give them opportunities. We have to empower young men and boys as well, because we understand the vulnerabilities of being a man and of being a boy in South Africa today. But we then also have to deal with issues of school-related gender-based violence as well that is taking place in our schools, and also then have to ensure that there's social inclusion of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities in schools. In the recent times, we've been hearing a lot about children who are committing suicide because of bullying and homophobic utterances that were said to these children. So that's the work of social cohesion. But the other nice part about my work is that I also now have to distribute education assistance to children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of victims who were identified through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So this country agreed on a repatriation process where we'll say that those children and those grandchildren and great-grandchildren of those victims will be taken to school. They will be given assistance with bursaries, uniforms, transport, boarding fees, you name it. So there is a lot of things that we do in this space that we don't make noise about. But I know that South Africa will wait for children to stab themselves or to stab each other, and then they'll be like, what are you doing? So I thought it's important for me to outline all of that for you.
So how is the response from those families that you identified before?
Through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I think there is a general appreciation of this repatriation from the South African government. Of course, the program is not running without problems. There are major problems. And in fact, I'm glad that you're asking me about it, because I'm sure there will be somebody who's listening to this podcast, who's watching it, I don't know, who knows of a family member who's struggling with this thing. And there are quite a couple of issues that we just need to fix with that. For example, because we're using public funds, there's no way that you can make those payments to those families if there are no support documents. Now, families take very long to bring those documents. And the money is ready. It's ready to be paid to the family. But the family hasn't brought this, hasn't brought that. And there's a couple of them. So that we can then support how we use your tax money. Because I can't just pay because you are a child of a victim. These things must be in place. We can't find them. People lose numbers. And then when you call them, you can't find them. They've changed numbers and stuff like that. It's just a mess, that we need to sort out. And then, of course, when the applications then come, they all come at the same time. And then there's such a big backlog that you need to pay and stuff like that. And so South Africans can really become impatient sometimes when it comes to that. But we're dealing with all of those issues.
Yeah. You'll get there. You'll get there. I trust you guys. Then let's come to you now. LIKHO BOTTOMAN. Or BOTTOMAN.
BOTTOMAN, it doesn't matter. It depends who you are and what language you are speaking. Because if umXhosa, then uzawuthi BOTTOMAN. But if sithethe isingesi, akuzafuna ukuthi BOTTOMAN.
Growing up in Tanzania, you know him Tanzania because well known in boxing. Yeah, well, I think they were trying music, but to overpower boxing. Then you hear boxing.
Hey, I wonder Nsindenjani because I just live a couple of houses away from the home of Happy Boy Mqatshi.
Oh.
Yes, just a couple of houses away. In fact, he stopped some taxi. Okay. So when I get off the taxi, I say Kwamqatshi. Then I know that's my stop.
The world champion.
Nsindenjani phaya? I think it's because yes, we grew up in an environment that was venerating boxing and boxing champions and stuff. Vuyani Pungu, they come from Tanzania, and welcome and stuff. Yeah. But I think by the time Tina we grew up, boxing in Tanzania was almost like getting depleted because if you look at it even now, it's not as powerful as it was at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it was a generational transition, during our time that we were then exposed to other things.
Yes.
Now I grew up in Tanzania when there was an upsurge of the arts and culture.
Yes.
So I guess maybe that vote of thanks I was delivering there comes from there. Because Nandkule, so as are groups in communities where people hold concerts, then people sing, people dance, and dances of Sarafina, no mango groove, no boom shaka, and all of those. And so that was my time. So the Kulenge get actually arts and culture, and I guess that's why I'm also like an artistic person even now because I grew up at the time, and we were very lucky as young people. We had older persons who were really driving the arts and culture agenda for us, and they mentored us. That was the time when even our beauty pageants in communities were a big issue. Like Miss Tanzania, Miss NU3. It was a big thing. You hold a title.
And we respect you.
Yeah, but we respect you to Miss NU3, Miss Aces Football Club. So those things. So I grew up at that time. So ndisinde kanjalo boxing. But iyathandwa ekhaya nabantu abadala kunamba bayayithanda but mna ndiyazi shamba don't wanna lie to you.
Then ekhaya khula na your siblings and parents.
Hey, I come from a very big family because where I grew up, it was my uncle, my mother's eldest brother, who, when their parents passed on, he then took his siblings and their children to live with him in his home with his children. And so it was very difficult to say this one is my sibling, this one is my cousin, because we grew up as siblings, all of us, Your uncle's children and your aunt's children are your siblings. That's where I grew up. And the way that they brought us up in 3 consistent spaces. So you could be at home, you could be at church, you could be at school, and nowhere else. And so if you create any other space, for example, the space arts and culture and sport.
Yes.
They understood that it's something that we needed to do, but they were not very supportive, And I think they were not supportive because they were worried about the risks that came with that.
Yes.
Because, when you do sports and when you do arts and culture, that means you have to be away from home. yabona endlini, where are you?
Yes,
Yabona, then it
yes,
becomes difficult for us to manage you and to, that kind of a thing. But I grew up in that kind of a family. It's big family, very big on church, very big on education,
yes.
and very big on family values.
Which child were you? That naughty one or the one parents isithembele kuyibayi ulikho uzayenza?
Uzayenza. I had different sides to me. Yeah, I had different sides to me. I had a side that was very handy because ndikhula ndingumntana okwazi uklina, so yabona ndiyaklina ke, ndiyapheka, and so my grandparents, in inverted commas, because really they're just my uncle and aunt, but I grew up and they were my grandparents because they brought up my mother. They trusted me with their bedroom, for example. They knew that, yabona, if only could clean a bedroom, say yes, could use over clean, and no one could clean that bedroom more than I could. And they also trusted me with shining the floor, because as soon as I touched it, was polishing the wax polish. Yes, so shine is after. Dimke when it comes to that. Cooking, I was not really a great cook, but at least I could cook a decent meal. I want to put it like that. But the other side of me was that my family felt that ndivulel. I'm sure people can hear that. Yeah, we are talking about ndivulel. So my family would always be concerned when there's going to be someone new who's gonna be visiting us, because uyovela phuhluke, uyovela khulume, something big. So much that my grandfather would then say to me when there are gonna be people, mntanam, ngicela ungathethi, do not express any opinion about anything whilst these people are here. Then when they leave, you can press the play button, because they could not anticipate what's going to come out of my mouth. And sometimes I'm told that I used to say things that make, real things, and things that were controversial, I would call it that. They would make people a bit uneasy, because I'm questioning everything. I used to be a child that questions everything. I would question why this one shares the same name with that one, but that one is not sharing the same name with us. What's happening here? That kind of a thing. I would ask those questions. So I was that kind of a child who was inquisitive, and sometimes inquisitive bordering on the lines of annoying. But at the same time, I was very handy.
Then ufunde Islanda?
Yes.
From grade 1 up to matric.
Well, I left East London when I completed my grade 9. So I was in East London the whole time. Funde Dumisa Lower Primary School, ndaphuma ndaye Dalukukanya Higher Primary School, ndaphuma ndaye Hlokoma High School, and then at Hlokoma High School I was part of the group that was also going to. They had this education system where if you take technical subjects, then you would have to go to this center that is used by a cluster of schools in Tanzania, where you then take these technical subjects, woodwork, metal work, mechanics, and all of those things. So I did that before I even became an occupational therapist. Then after grade 9, I then left and I went to Cape Town, because then my mother relocated to Cape Town. Then I went to Ocean View High School in Cape Town. A totally different environment, multiracial, if you want to go, because it's in a colored community, and also quite cosmopolitan in terms of religion, because we went to school with Christian and Hindu and Muslim children and so forth. So suddenly I was exposed to diversity in Ocean View Secondary.
Then it's helping you now. You know what is happening.
Then, actually, yes, it was preparing me for this.
Then you came to Joburg. You chose Wits.
Then, well...
Was it your first time?
No, actually, then I went to the University of the Western Cape. That's where I did my junior degree in occupational therapy. Then I moved from there. I did my... in South Africa, when you do health profession, you then have to do what we call community service, where you work for the government for a year. So I worked for the government in a hospital called KwaMhlanga in Mpumalanga, KwaNdebele, KwaMhlanga Hospital, and it was a cluster of hospitals with Mametlake Hospital. I worked there for my full year for my community service. Then I was then recruited by Limpopo Department of Health and Social Development. So they came to fetch me. I went to Limpopo St. Rita's Hospital. That's where I was doing clinical work.
Okay.
And then what had happened was I then registered for an MPA in University of Pretoria. That's how I came to Gauteng, because I was here for my postgrad studies. And I dropped out because I struggled with that master's program at UP. But at the time then, I was already beginning to see that, then I could actually leave the clinical world and join the public policy world, because it was Masters in Public Administration. That's how I got to Department of Education. I left the hospital setting and I work in government. So whilst I was working here, I then, of course, then got promoted. And then when I went out to vets, I went there to work. I had left the Department of Basic Education. I went to try a consultancy. I was working under a consultancy of somebody. That didn't work. And I think it's important for us to say these things, even to young people who are listening to us, that you sometimes get deterred and you take a detour to get to your destiny. Because here I was, I actually dropped out of University of Pretoria. I left government to try working in a consultancy, which didn't work. And then I made a detour. I went to Wits University to work there. And I did something that I really loved. It's just that it wasn't paying me enough here, but it was working. It was an NGO that is attached to the School of Education, Center for Deaf Studies. Opening learning opportunities and language opportunities for children who are deaf and hard of hearing. I loved that work. I could do that work every day. It's just that one, it was in Joburg and I had to wake up from Pretoria. I'm not a morning person. Two, it wasn't paying me well. So I needed to get out of there. Then DB took me back to say, I come back, Pela, because we still need you. Then I came back here, but I've left this department at some point. But for a year, and then I came back. And then I thought, okay, let me go and try this master's program again, because andikho dom umthetho wami. Andikho dom. I don't know what was happening. I think I was partying too much. I had a lot of things that were happening. Also, you are seeking a partner. So I thought, now that I'm older and I'm not seeking a partner and I'm not partying, let me try this again. And when I came back with a cum laude in my master's program to show that when you got home, I had distractions.
Your time was limited.
So the money masters get UJ in inclusive education. So right now, in Denza, a PhD, I'm in inclusive education now. Well, man, got in Denza because we has Mautu Yenza. It's like you started writing. I have not even started writing. Let me just say I desire to do it. To register so and I desire.
Now something come to my mind. Social cohesion. I saw a choir last from Cape Town. It was connected by a white lady of kids as challenges.
Or learners with special education needs. Okay. Yes.
I think it kulapho kungena khona now.
Yes.
Yeah, to have more of those choirs.
Yes.
Because it worries me to have izikolo zabelungu nezabantu abamnyama. Masine competition apha zo music okanye izikolo zabelungu zizodwa zabantu abamnyama zodwa. Then we're busy teaching abantwana ba lento mayiphele. But sibe siyipractice.
Yeah.
So I think kulapho ungena khona nalapha ku music.
And you're correct, because I was speaking to the new director who's responsible for that work.
Yes.
And we're saying that how do we drive a representativity agenda in choral music, Because firstly, we do want to see more non-Black kids participating.
Exactly.
So I think la organization, maybe the Articavia, you know about it, ATKV.
I saw it.
Yes.
Social
I think Bona, they attract a lot of non-Black children in their competitions. We do want to draw close to them.
Yes.
And you know what we like about Articavia is that we've learned that they respect SASCE. As a result, they would even postpone their competitions if they clash with SASCE, because they want to open up the space. Go to SASCE, mayenzeke. uyababona ukuthi these people don't intend to disrupt or to disturb government. Yabona? But I think there hasn't been an open pathway for them to engage with us so that we see how can we do this together. So we want to sort out representativity in terms of race.
Yes.
But also when I was at SASCE, there's a new trend now that's coming through, and that's the trend of gender diversity. We used to say female voices, male voices,
Yes.
and we've now moved and we say alto voices, soprano voices, or that kind of, because we are also mindful of the fact that we have girls that have got tenor voices. We've got boys that have got soprano voices.
Yes.
And so how do we then get around this in a way that will be in line with social cohesion, values and principles and fundamentals? So without being prejudiced against those people who've got those voices, we want to open up the space so that really, if you're a tenor voice, this space is not going to block you from tenor because you didn't apply for this deep voice that you have. But also we had girls who are girls in terms of sex, but in terms of gender, they are transgender boys.
Yes.
Sia, I'm telling you, when I was called backstage, at SASCE, I went there and they told me that these are the girls. And I literally saw boys. Those were boys. There was nothing girly about those girls.
Yes,
They were really boys. And then when I started speaking to them, the mannerisms, the voice, they're really, really, really boys. But they're transgender boys,
Yes.
And so they had a desire to sing in a boys' choir. And there was a big debate.
On the verification room.
Yes. There was a big debate then about how do we do this? Hey, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, they thought that it's not a matter to be dealt with at the backstage at that point in time. We need greater conversation as the sector about these issues so that we understand them, we're on the same page about them, and then we see how we're going to channel our children so that we're not the first people to discriminate against them, because these children are still going to be discriminated out there. At least they must enjoy, they must discover themselves, they must be comfortable in their own skin. Then when they go out, at least they have the experience. But umntwana akakwazi ukuqala on the deficit of discrimination and prejudice, that the life of that child will be diseased forever. If they start on a deficit, already they know as they step inside the room that people are going to be to reject them. Yeah.
So now the competition are here next year. Have you already sat down and share ideas on that?
Yes. In fact, do you know that we were judged for including Michael Jackson's
song,
music?
Yeah.
Who were judged, but there were other people who were saying that great. It means then that choral music is progressive.
Yes.
But there were people who were like, hi guys, Michael Jackson. So there are different views about what we do. But Sia, we have a committee that selects music for us. So it's not LIKHO who wakes up,
is a music
wipes his eyes, asulindongo, ati nangu music and uthanda ngoba ndithanda Michael Jackson. These people come together and they really, really consider. But my caution to them, to the colleagues who lead this area, has always been that let's try and choose music that's not going to harm children. In terms of voice, because I'm told that if voices are abandoned as funny voices are abandoned, of course that should make sense. And so that means that even when we select music, yes, let's challenge them, but let's not overstretch them. There's a difference between challenging children and then overstretching them. I think that we need to be cautious when we select music, that it's not an overstretch, but it is a challenge. And most of the time, South African children, because of the richness of their talent, they always rise above the challenge that we give them.
I think, LIKHO, we need more of these interviews, because I'm sure it was supporters and the fans who were saying, why are you giving us Michael Jackson? You see?
Yeah.
So I think we need to have more of these with also the committee of
Yes.
Selecto music.
Yes.
So explain, but why we did
How
this?
did you arrive at these songs? Actually, I think it would be a nice idea. We need to call one of them, a representative from there, so that we go through the repertoire. Then you'll have that book now in front of you. Then we're okay. Now let's see. Besame Mutlo, what's happening here? How did you select this? And then the story behind it. I think also it will assist even Izkolo to prepare, because this person will be like, hey, this story is about this man who's doing this and that, to clarify it. Of course, but we do workshops.
Workshops,
we do them anyway.
The
but I think those people who are unable to attend workshops will benefit from your podcast on that thing.
Because as friends, you can't go to the workshops. Only teachers and those who are close to. Yeah. No, LIKHO, we're talking about music now. I was going to ask about, were you in the committee now last 2023 for 2023 music?
Hayi kaloku siyakhumbula lokhu, ndibanjwe ngesandla mna nguminister.
Elaa xesha. You were not in the committee.
I was not in the committee. I didn't even know what is being sung. I didn't even know adjudicators ukuthi ngobani. I even saw that, okay, we've got a new program director now, Udog, Uskosana, Ulele Skosana. We've got a new, I didn't know. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know where I was sleeping that week. I just had bags in my boot and I was asked, Minister has appointed you, you must go and stand in for Sfiso. Go to Rem. That's how I got there. So I couldn't yazi about that thing.
Okay. So I think now is our Sondel, because this is sending the social cohesion.
Yes.
Music.
Yes.
I think now is about close to that team.
Yes.
Your music.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
No, they did.
Because I think you also relate, because when you're outside on the ground, different schools, I think you relate with the kids. I think they see someone who's not
too old.
Yeah, too old. Yeah. So I think we need people like you on that space. Yeah. Then another thing, what can you say to, there's a lot of graduates. SASCE department, there's a lot of graduates. There's clearly that they don't know what to do. Abanye sebeluze hope. What can you say, LIKHO, Kubo?
Hey, it's difficult here because unemployment is a reality for our communities. And I think the depreciating economy is also not helping the situation.
Yes.
More and more we're learning about companies that are closing down, that are trimming down, and so forth. And I think very soon government is also going to start trimming down, from what we hear. So things are going to get worse than they are at the moment. My suggestion to graduates is that we know there are a couple of things that work, right? One, we know that studying further works, because when you study further, you then become a specialist in a particular field. And that then immediately positions you as a specialist in the field. And out there, isikhathi se-generalists siphelile. Sifuna specialists in different fields right now. And you become a specialist then when you study further, your postgrad, your master's, your PhD. And time is fast reaching a point where, these bachelor degrees that we have are not going to matter, because abantu bafundile out there, bane masters, bane PhDs. So I think I would want to encourage young people, let's study further. And when you study further, what happens is that suddenly now you become a consultant in a particular field, right?
Yes.
Because ndiyibonile ukuthi space se-consultants, if ne-bachelor's degree abakuhoyi, but bangu-doctors mang automatically uyanikwa i-job, you become a consultant. Nabo phofu xa bezi-advertise bathi bafuna i-PhD, yabona, okanye bathi bafuna i-masters at least. And then you become a consultant then in your area of specialization. You make lots of money. You are self-employed. You don't have to do anything. You make, here's the consultants here, they make money in a month that some people like us can make in a year. In a month, abantu abazi consultants, they do that. The other thing that we are learning a lot about, we're learning about entrepreneurship. I think as a global society, we are moving now towards entrepreneurship. We want people to start their own businesses and, and employ other people and so forth. But I know that other people will argue to say, but if to be an entrepreneur, you need money, you need capital and stuff and stuff. I don't know how people do it. I mean, I would never be an entrepreneur for, not even to save my life. So that thing is for people who have got the acumen for it.
Yeah.
But I think that also young people need to recognize that the workforce in South Africa is now getting old. If you look around, you take a scan. I mean, we get a lot of reports from the DPME and from other barometers that are being made in the country. They are saying that the workforce in our country is getting old, and very soon we will have an exodus in the workforce, and suddenly things will open up for the younger generation to now come in. So let's place our hope in that. Let's keep applying. Let's keep following our passions, and let's specialize where we can and be ready to take advantage of opportunities that will open up to us. But do not lose hope. Do not lose hope. At the moment, whilst none of these are working, just do some voluntary work in some organization that stands for a passion that you have. Just do some work there and collect work experience. Yeah.
That's it. This is Grand Piano Truth. My name is Sia, your host. Don't forget to subscribe on our channel, Grand Piano Truth with Sia. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe, and share the information. Thank you. LIKHO?
Thank you very much.
Showman.
That was hard.